Well, we'll work on, I know that Brenda will work with the box and we'll get that figured out. On Colorado Springs Utilities, I wrote down here a community conversation. I'm getting more and more, I guess I would just say contact from people in the community wanting a broader conversation. Those of you that were at the chamber luncheon where I over the state of the city remarks, when I said I felt that this conversation on the future of Colorado Springs Utilities needs to be a broad community conversation. I think you heard the applause. I don't think it was for me. I think it was for the subject. And I know I'm now getting into your business, even though I'm an ex officio member of the utility board. I really haven't been engaged in that. So I just want to, I guess, just commend to you that I think we're at a point in time, as we were with Memorial previously, where we need to be taking a fresh look at utilities. I know this may be the same drumbeat as maybe in the past, but I believe we need to, through a process that's expedited, verify whether or not we should continue to own our utilities. We may very well decide that we don't want to make any changes, but there's enough question out there now. I think that that should be a subject of open discussion. And secondly, if we're going to continue to own our utilities, I know we're going to get into governance, and you got other things on the plate. Decided to do that later. To me, that's an important discussion. And as to future governance of utilities, in terms of expertise especially. And then I also think, as we are doing in the executive branch, and we're just getting started, you're going to see a lot more from us in terms of strategic reevaluation of everything we're doing. I hope that you'll agree that it's time for a strategic look at utility operations. Laura Newman reported to you in a recent council meeting, and this is a fact, we believe, that utilities has double the number of people in finance, HR, and IT. Now, there may be very good reason for that. Especially IT, since they are in the business of collecting utility payments. But that raises a red flag to me personally as to, are they as efficient as they can be? And in fairness, are we as efficient as we should be? And if we aren't, then you need to hold us to task on that. So I'll just leave it there. I know you have a utility board meeting this afternoon. I'm feeling more and more community, I guess I would just say interest, not pressure, but interest, and us going through that kind of discussion. Scott, I'm sure you have a comment.
Well, first off, governance is on the topic for this afternoon. I think Jan and I will talk about that. I'll put my biases on the table. I wrote an op-ed that was in the paper about a week and a half ago, and thank you again to the Gazette for running that. And I think my opinions are pretty clear in that and stated, but those are my personal opinions based on the 9 years on the board. But as I said in the article, to have this kind of discussion is always healthy. Even if we do nothing, it's always healthy, and I agree with you on that. But I don't want to be in the position of throwing the baby out with the bathwater. We have sorry, I'm going to toot the horn here for a second. We have a utilities that's has one of the highest reliability rates in the nation. It traditionally has rates that are below average when compared with all of our peers. It has one of the highest. It wins consistent J.D. Powers awards for customer service. So like I said, my biases are pretty well known, and I just want to be open about that. But and I think it's healthy to have a conversation because there's always room for improvement, but I don't want to get in the position of just saying, well, we need to throw everything out and start over again. It's okay to have a conversation, but let's recognize that we have a community asset here that's great.
Well, and honestly, in my view, there ought to be some help there from some professional group that is expert on utilities. I would suggest the city council should select that vendor, not management, any more than if you decided you wanted to take a strategic look at the executive branch. I shouldn't pick that vendor. I think council should, for objectivity, to make sure there's no apparent, not real, but apparent conflict of interest. And so I just would ask that you give that fresh consideration. And I agree with Scott. I think we don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. I will say two things to you. One is, it's just a question. We work really hard to maintain a AA rating. There are other utilities around the country and lots of corporations and organizations who are willing to live with a AA minus, just a tick less security of bondholders. What is the cost of that different rating and utility rates, if any? And what does that do to free up utilities from what can be some very onerous bond covenants? I don't know the answer to that. All I know is that my whole life we keep striving for, we want the highest possible bond rating. Well, I think we should just have a conversation about what's the alternative. What if we have an A rating or a AA minus? What would that do to us? That's what I'm thinking about.
Yes, let me just answer your question real quick. I'm not sure, we've had that discussion in the past, I'm not sure we've had it since this board's been in, and that's a reasonable discussion. Jan, maybe you can help me remember here. But one of the things we have done in the past is we've looked at different bond ratings and what that would mean in terms of increased cost to utilities, which is obviously increased cost to the ratepayers. I think it's a reasonable question. I think we can have utilities, like I said, I can't remember if we've done it since this board's been in, but we can have that conversation. If we've done that in the past, we can look at that again.
Is that plan?
Sure.
You know, it's important for us not to lose sight of we're in the middle of a $1 billion water project that has been 20 years in the making. And as these discussions, we go on and we talk about bond ratings and so on, we need to remember that this is one of the biggest projects this utility company's ever been involved in. And so the costs are significant. But I agree with Scott, we're open to these conversations.
Absolutely, Janet. Let me be more specific. I'm really addressing the electric generating capacity. And here's another question. I mean, again, if everybody has the answer and I don't, then I need to catch up. Just a thought. And it's a question. If we leased or sold the electric generating capacity of our Springs utilities, what would that generate, if anything, in capital for the community to have as a resource versus what would be the increase, if any, in utility rates? If somebody said to me, you know what, if we lease or sell electric generating capacity, we're going to have a 20% increase in electric rates in the discussion. Somebody told me recently that Austin, Texas spent $82 million, and this needs to be fact checked, but I'm being told that Austin, Texas spent $80-some million to provide the community with LED light bulbs, both residential customers and commercial customers, or they're in the process of doing it. And why would they do that? Because concurrent with that, it lowers the electrical usage, and that Austin is determining that it not only does not need to expand its electric generating capacity, but it actually can reduce it. Have we looked at that? If we have, then I'm, again, need to get up. So I just have a number of questions, and with respect to a community conversation on utilities, I hope you'll lead it. And if you're not comfortable doing it, I will, but I don't think that's my place. I think that's your part. So
I'll ask your question when we keep still on the microphone to Angela, so I'll let her. No, you go. I feel bad. You already